Hi, this is Renee from the Bass Case. Today I'm going to show you how I put epoxy on a fretless fretboard. Now, why would I want to do this? Firstly, I love the classic matte double bassy look by coloring the epoxy black. Already enough reason for me. Secondly, it protects the fretboard from string wear. I'm pretty sure it also improves the sound, makes it bitier with more attack. Fretless fretboards should be sanded when the string grooves get too deep, like every other year, depending on how much you play. I've been working and punishing this epoxied Fender mercilessly for a year with round wounds. I can't see any wear worth mentioning. You might ask, why not simply have an ebony wood fretboard? Rare and expensive is the answer. And dare I say, the epoxy is hard. What is epoxy? Epoxy is a very hard, resilient compound used as glue, filler, art and jewelry material, lots of things. With epoxy, you have two liquids, the resin and the hardener, which needs mixing in ratio 1:1 if you want them to sit. Setting takes 12 to 24 hours. The outcome is clear, tough, hard, and less brittle than superglue. I found a few videos with people epoxying a fretboard with superglue, but none with actual epoxy, although I heard and read about it. Jacko famously did it, so I had a go on my Fender and it turned out brilliantly. Check out my Fender mods video. Here I have this 6-string fretless bass neck that screams to be epoxied, and I'm going to show you how I do it. As preparation, if not sure, do some practicing first. See these two boards where I tried out epoxying, coloring, sanding, mix ratios, polishing, and more. Here's a polishing experiment gone very wrong. It's just to get you started. You don't want to be running into this kind of trouble when working on your precious neck. Those Fender necks cost $700 a pop, an expensive experiment if gone wrong. Hi everyone, let me quickly run you through all the utensils you're going to be needing for the epoxy. Firstly, you're going to need gloves. Epoxy is a very nasty substance. You don't want it on the fingers or anywhere else. Then here obviously we have the two liquids, the resin and the hardener, together with measuring cups. Don't mix them up. And a disposable fruit cup here. And 2 scoops to get it out of the cups and to stir it around. Here we have black epoxy color, obviously to give it that black ebony look. Mug with hot water, simply to keep the epoxy mixture as warm and fluid as possible for as long as possible. Here you have the actual brush to get it onto the surface. Because you use that. It's a spray with methylated spirit that breaks up the surface of the epoxy and gets rid of bubbles. And this is a barbecue lighter replacing a heat gun. This is also meant to get rid of bubbles when they happen. All right. First, you need to base sand the fingerboard, and don't be shy. I use a coarse sanding paper and really apply some pressure. This does 3 things. It evens out the surface if you already have string grooves in it. Second, it removes waxing or finish on the fingerboard, which the epoxy will have trouble sticking to. And third, it creates a rough surface which the epoxy can sink its teeth in. I learned this the hard way with lots of epoxy sanding. Make sure you get every corner. These can become problem areas. I use water-based turps for cleaning and wet sanding. Painting on the epoxy. First, tape off the neck. Everything that does not get epoxied needs to be sealed off. I put the tape exactly to the edge. This way, excess epoxy can flow over. If you create a barrier with the tape, you will get a buildup on the edges. With epoxy, in general, we have one enemy, air bubbles, especially when you apply epoxy that thin. Whatever you do, do it slowly and think of anything that might push air bubbles into the mix when pouring, when mixing, dipping the brush, brushing itself, everything in super slow motion.
Try to brush on as evenly as possible. 2 things you can do to reduce bubbles: spray a little methylated spirits on top. This breaks up the surface and lets the air out. Second, apply some heat, like I do with this stove lighter. Take care, don't touch the surface. Don't stay in one spot for too long with the flame. It can start burning. When finished, find a cool, flat, dust-free spot to sit. Epoxy will keep moving for a few more hours.
Now here we have the outcome 24 hours later. The epoxy has set. Generally, I'm very pleased with the outcome. The epoxy has stayed on the surface. Usually it tends to retreat from the corners a little bit or repose in the middle. We have a lot of bubbling and some unevenness happening here. This needs to be sanded out. So the next step is sanding it absolutely flat till all the bubbles and unevenness is gone. It might be that the wood will be shining through it at some spots, but we have to be quite strict here.
Sanding epoxy is a bit different to wood. It will stick on sandpaper and make it dull, so you need new pieces frequently. I like sanding wet with sanding sponges. It's an even sand, and the grain coming off stays in the liquid and keeps working. The surface outcome has to be absolutely smooth and straight. Test with your finger. This might make the wood shine through in some spots. This is going to be fixed in the next coats. Remember, you want to play with it. You don't want a funny, wonky surface on your fingerboard. Sand, clean, feel, repeat. 4 to 5 coats is a realistic number. Here the outcome of sanding of coat 1. You have to be relentless and unforgiving. Everything that is even a little bit bumpy has to go. The wood has come through in large areas, but there are more coats to come and cover it. Believe it or not, this looks actually pretty good for the first coat.
So this is coat number 2. What you can see, a relatively deep brush stroke, but on the other hand, the deeper dents that go into the wood are not hardly there anymore. We still have bubbles, but I think we can sand most of it out. In general, good result. The epoxy had real trouble setting. Here we got still some wet epoxy due to the heat, but I think we're good. So this is the sanding outcome after coat number 2. As you can see, the wood shines through in a number of places, but you have to be quite strict. The surface has to be very even, because you will feel it later on. So this is coat number 3. Pretty good result. We've got the usual bubbles, but they can be sanded out. The brush strokes are pretty shallow. I use a trick by using slightly more hardener, roughly in the ratio 4 to 5. Then it spreads a bit more evenly. If that one has a downside, it makes it more brittle. But in that little ratio change, it should not be too bad. This is the outcome of sanding of coat number 3. It looks already very spotless here. But I have 2 problem areas here and here, so I have to put on another coat. If I would leave it, I would sand it with very fine paper, sandpaper, but since I'm going over with another coat, I'm going to leave it at the rough sanding. So this is coat number 4, hopefully the final coat. Looks exactly like coat number 3, pretty shiny, pretty smooth, but with bubbles. I hope I can sand them out. I will give special attention to those 2 areas where the wood was shining through before. And let's see how I go. This is the sanding of the coat 4. We have a very good outcome. I think it's very close to perfection. Nice, black, homogeneous.
and a few glossy bits here, but we till that one, the tape comes off. But other than that, it is pretty spot on. Now, ripping off the Band-Aid. Of course, in our case, do it extra slowly. As a first step, take a fine file and go around the edges in a 45-degree angle. This helps the epoxy to break along the right line. There are spots with a little buildup, special care here. Slowly peel the tape off. I'm always amazed how well epoxy works with tape and how clear and clean the edge is. Attention please. There might be small drops in places on the tape where the epoxy has not set. You don't want to smear this on the clean neck like I almost did here. Be extra wary and check your hands frequently. But we are looking really good here. I'm absolutely stoked by the outcome. It's black, it's matte, it's epoxy and tough. Exactly what I wanted. I can't wait to assemble it with the rest of the instrument. Watch my future video how I turn a cheap AliExpress bass from zero to hero. Until then, with the words of my famous countryman,
do it now, subscribe now,
and like and share, and stay tuned on the Bass Cave.